He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too. Now keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys if they're listening this morning is go get a cup of coffee, maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. I'm going to keep my big BA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need, we know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. And let me share just a quick update here with you from Judge Napolitano. Judge Napolitano got kicked off of Fox Network for giving you the truth, pretty much. And in his most recent article, he says the First Amendment to the Constitution prohibits the government from infringing upon the freedom of speech, the freedom of association, and the freedom to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Speech is language and other forms of expression, and association and petition connote physical presence and reasonable proximity to those of like mind and to government officials so as to make your opinions known to them. The Declaration of Independence recognizes all free freedoms as stemming from our humanity. So what happens if you can speak freely, but the government officials at whom your speech is aimed refuse to hear you? And what happens if your right to associate and to petition the government is confined to areas where those of like mind and the government are not present? This is coming to a street corner near you. Certain rights, like thought and privacy and travel, can be exercised on their own. You don't need the government to cooperate with you. Hello?
Hey, Clay, this is George. You calling me or am I calling you?
Well, this works fine, George. We're on the air now, and I apologize. I somehow might have got my time or something screwed up, and I know you were out of town, so we didn't connect before. But you made it here now, and I'm glad to have you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
And we are recording. Did you have a good trip?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Did you fly? Did you enjoy getting felt up? How did that go for you?
No, I don't you skip all that. There's some ways to do it. They always have 3 or 4 places, so there's ways to get around all that. Usually just, look smile, don't look like a crook, and walk through. I guess that's the best way to look at it. But I didn't have it didn't have to go through the different gadgets that they have, which I don't want to do. So I just told them that. And they have lines set up. Believe it or not, people can go through and they just look at you. So that's all.
Okay. George, I put this up, that you were invited into the Illuminati and you turned it down.
That's correct.
All right. And I've been talking about the Illuminati. I've been talking about the New World Order for 25 years. We've both been talking about that and trying to wake people up. But I just before you came up, while we were recording here, I read something from Judge Napolitano who says the Secret Service can now tell you to shut up. Have you seen that? You know, these are free speech zones.
Yeah, Clay, there were a lot of new laws. There was well over 11,000 new laws that were passed last year, and there's no way you can keep track of it. And all of these different agencies, they're just getting everything set up. I mean, that's what you're talking about at this minute. When they were advertising on TV for people to come in to help set up the FEMA camps, this is on television just in the last 3 months. They're getting ready for something big, and the FEMA camps, as you know, are all set up all over the country right now. So, and I think you're probably on the list.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, I've been on their list for a long time. The NDAA. This is, when I filmed the Homeland Security meeting and I put it out in my True Face of FEMA. They're talking about this being a long war. They're talking about the enemy being weak, enemy being use the army being, and they 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops. And he's asking, you talking about the National Guard? No, they're too expensive. Besides, they're going to be in Iraq or Afghanistan. And he's asked about posse comitatus. He said, we can suspend posse comitatus anytime. And that's what the NDAA has done. So aren't we set up? Aren't we in almost exactly the same position? Isn't the same things happening to Americans that happened to the Russians when the communists ended up killing 60 million white Christian Russians?
It's almost the same as that was set up by Germany. It's the same, almost the same rules exactly when Hitler came into power. So nothing has changed. It's just the sequence of events, and the programming of the American people is so incredible right now. They're all asleep, Clay. How many people are listening to you? Everybody should be, but they won't do it. And then when they really get into it, like they awaken, what can we do about it right now? I mean, I'm having a meeting with one of our state representatives in 2 days, and you know what he says? Yeah, we got to come up from elections, but I'm not going to run because of the group that, have been elected. Fewer than about 15%, he said, are aware of some of the stuff that's going on. The rest of them are part of the group. They want to go along with the status quo because A, they're elected official, B, they think they're going to do something, and all they're doing is closing the loop on us, that's all. There's 2 million Americans left the United States, Clay, in the last, 2 years now.
And about the same number of Americans lost their homes last year, didn't they? About 2 million?
Well, but there's been a lot more. That's correct, but there's going to be a lot more of those. There's 6 million houses right now, 6 million houses that are upside down in the United States that the people are still, sticking in because they got their thing. They think they're dreaming that things are going to turn around. But that's only part of the picture. Part of the picture, we're running into some incredible changes in frequencies that are happening on the planet. The weather, I got word that when the volcano went off over in Italy, Vesuvius went off, and it went off so heavy, it went way high. Anyway, that was a marker. But it was basically saying get ready for major weather changes, like yesterday, which is basically the first day of spring, had frost in Los Angeles. We got wet snow on I-10 that shut down, over 90 miles of Interstate 10. We got weather changes all over. I just talked to Iceland yesterday. They've never had it so cold. I was talking to Ecuador. The rainy season was supposed to quit a month ago, and it's still raining. And this is in South America. Everything is changing around the planet in big time, so the plants are going to be confused if they're going to, run. Places where it's not supposed to be raining, it's raining. Other parts of the country, 80 degrees in Washington, D.C. I mean, things are so crazy that nobody knows what's happening, but the weather is going to start accelerating, so we're going to go from winter to summer with basically no spring or fall. And so what's going to happen is the whole thing has changed. Now, this is not happening just in the United States. It's happening in Europe. You've been reading about all of the snowstorms and everything. And over in China, things are happening every place, and this is the northern hemisphere as well as the southern hemisphere. So the indications are not only are we going to get into a war, which they've got, they've had that planned for some time, but that could be instantaneous the way things are going. I'm looking at the Middle East kind of thing. China has got 2 million, quote, trained troops, which they do. We've got 1 million, but they're scattered all over the world, supposedly policing up or helping other people, and it's all run by our CIA. And now, Clay, you and I both know some of the CIA, and CIA, to me, the ones that I know are all professional liars. I mean, they go to liar school. That's what they are. The intelligence, right? So an intelligence doesn't mean you have to tell the truth, and they certainly don't.
Do we have any answers? Do we have any answers, George? I mean, isn't there somebody at the upper levels, high-level general, CIA, somebody in the government that is aware of this besides Joe McCarthy, and we know what happened to him?
There's a few, but the same situation. You got Ron Paul that's aware of all of these things.
Yes.
And he's been out, hasn't he? Been out trying to get everybody to wake up, and you can see it's like the election last night. What did he get? 3 or 4% of the people to come by? It's just a nominal thing, and they know that. Remember, when I talk to the guys on it, they don't care that you even know, because their idea is they've won the game now. Now it's just a question of rounding the thing up and getting ready. When people are aware of how sick this is, remember, they want to reduce the population of the United States down to 20 million. Now, how they're going to do it is by all means necessary. Well, all means necessary is biological as well as war. And they obviously want to sit down and, say, hey, it's a long ways away in order for anybody to go attack us. Well, when you got 3 Russian submarines 12 miles offshore on the west coast and 3 of them on the east coast, that's not very far. And not only that, you've added in another thing. China now has got submarines, as you're well aware. China has nuclear. Remember, we've got 8 countries with nuclear, and they're making a big deal over Iran right now. Russia has come in and provide all of the technology on all of the reactors and stuff over there so they could have electricity, because they're running out of oil. I'll tell you how serious things are, forgetting what they're talking about. Mexico, which is exporting, well, they import about 60% of their oil right now. This is to run Mexico. And they are exporting 40% of the oil that they're taking to the United States. I mean, they mark it up. So what's amounting to is right now is what's happening in Mexico within 18 months. All of the wells and all the oil and everything is reaching the finite point where they're going to be basically shut down. Now, what's going to happen? We've got all of these Central American countries, as you probably are aware, that are up in the air. Honduras and the rest of them, that are all being lined up for running the drugs, as you know, coming up to this country. And you go down to them right now, Americans aren't wanted on the streets. I know you can go to some of the places and some people say nothing's going on. But right now, when you get Americans to go to places like Acapulco, which is nothing but a big, resort, and yet, as if you're an American, you're just bait. And that's happening all over the planet. We're no longer, we're no longer the fair-haired people coming to other places. They just don't want us. Look at in order to save or anything, I've been advising people to put money in the Bank of Nova Scotia in Canada, but you can't do that anymore. They will not put in any American money. They're returning everything.
Now, George, things are tightening up. I mean, I just listened to somebody talking about the smart meters, and the smart meters, they want to put those on the house to control all of the energy that you need to monitor it and everything. But there was also a blurb that passed on the internet, and I haven't been able to find that, where the FBI says they're capable of using your appliances, your microwave, your computer, your TV, your smart meter. The smart meter has a broadcast thing, a Wi-Fi thing, and they can basically monitor everything you do through your appliances. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard about that. In fact, I was talking to the guys about doing, where we were talking about something to offset that. Do you remember in the old days, Clay, when you went down to the paint store and you got lead paint, you painted on the walls?
Yeah.
And how come they got rid of that? Because the lead paint would shield you from all of that.
Yeah, it wasn't so dangerous. We didn't lose. How many kids?
No,
how many kids did we lose licking the walls? You know.
That's right. But see, now they've got it all taken care of, so everybody else has the plastic, so you can use the smart meter so they can go through. The problem is today, there's very few sources of getting paint with lead in it. I mean, you can still get it, but you can't get it from the local stores because everything is all supposedly checked by the EPA, right? And some kind of environmental thing. Well, what's coming up, Clay? We have to get ready for these 200 to 400 mile an hour winds. As you're probably aware, that's already started. And you know, with the typhoon, all the hurricanes and the other things that were going on, and our tornadoes, that has started already, and that's like 2 months before it normally goes. So they're telling us to get ready to 200 to 400 mile an hour winds. The suggestion is then to start looking at having a house like a monolithic dome, something that will be able to withstand it.
Well,
I'm not too worried about the winds.
I have those monolithic domes that you can blow them up. You can create them for less or equal to the cost of a stick-built house, and you can blow these domes up and put them in. And if you attach rebar and put it in concrete, they'll withstand 200 mile an hour winds. And
well,
I think
that's true. What you also should do is paint, again, find some lead paint to paint them so they can't get through, so you don't have any of these measuring devices that they can get from satellites, so they'll be able to see what's in. But you're right.
Now, I have made the comment that Obama's idea of greening America is to sell the top of that mountain over there to a foreign corporation who will import wind generators from Japan, say, and they'll put them on top of that mountain up there. International corporation, they'll send that power that they generate down the hill to the power company, where the power company will sell it to you. Now, my idea of greening America is to do basically in every city, in every block, and every farm, what they did, what Brad Pitt and Angela Jolie did in New Orleans. They put solar and wind on every home. They put a garden in the backyard, and their houses started paying them instead of them paying the banksters, you know, paying for a house 3 times over the next 30 years.
Well, that's a good idea. My suggestion is to look at the new LED technology. You know, the little field lights are the lights you put in your garden that you can buy at the store for $2 that are nothing more than an LED light along with a little solar panel that picks up the sun that goes in the battery. You can put that kind of wiring throughout your entire house right now and use LED lights that takes no power. A couple of solar panels, you've got lights for your house. The only thing you also, that's just another way to do things, but that's the up and coming things right now. It's not all the bulbs and everything that they're giving us to take all the big energy, come down to no energy or very little. And then the only focal point you'll have this stuff is to provide heat. And if you do it like you just said, build the solar homes or the monolithic domes. And by the way, those they maintain an average humidity of 50%, and the temperatures stay the same year round. Yes. It doesn't take much to heat them.
No.
So we got a game in 2 ways to look at it. The trouble is we don't have a lot of time yet.
I started trying to promote this. I started trying to promote this over 8 years ago, and suddenly I was in a hospital. Suddenly my magazines were closed down. I almost believe the idea for Liberty Villages is why they tried to kill me. They didn't want me. They didn't want me to putting people together, working together. And if you, my theory, George, is if you grow your own non-GMO foods, you're eating healthy, you're staying healthier, and if you grow your own food, you don't have to wait for the truck to come into Walmart. And you don't need the government or the bankers for nothing if you've got your own food and your own energy from everything God gave us, including the magnetic motors that we know is real but is banned by national security by the United States. That's why you don't see any magnetic generators here. It's a part of national security to protect the oil industries. Is that correct?
Well, I'm only a few blocks, as you and I are speaking, away from Bedini. Bedini's got lots of magnetic motors, and they're having if you pull up his name, they're having a big expo in the next few months. I don't have the deal, but they'll show you.
Who is that? What's the name? What's the name?
John Bedini, B-E-D-I-N-I. He's the father of all the magnetic motors and everything else. I mean, it's real easy to make them. I mean, I've made them myself for less than $5, and that's just going over to Radio Shack for parts. So it's not a big deal. But if you go up to his site, John Bedini, you'll see all kinds of things that are up there, and they have videos and stuff how to make them.
Well,
people can make them themselves.
The cost of solar panels. I mean, I know more and more people that are building solar panels right there in their garage, right there in their backyard. And let's see, what do they make solar panels out of? Oh yeah, sand. Is that's not too expensive?
It's silica, right? Silica. Right now, the China's coming in cheaper because I just got you buying some. China's bringing in the solar panels that are really advanced because and it's so cheap that you can't afford to buy the materials for what it's cheap in. Now you say, okay, we're providing the stuff for China. Clay, when I was in Beijing over there, I'll never forget I was in with the leaders, and they told me 5,000 years it's their turn to run the world. Well, you have no idea what 1,300,000,000 people are until you walk among them. And that's what China is. And now we come over here and say we're going to try to be this republic. That's what we were supposed to be, a republic. And what's happening right now, we're all being manipulated by the conventional things, the houses that you have to build conventional, like monolithic. The hardest thing to do is get financing for people. Well, they can't finance the stuff because they're not conventional. In other words, the unions don't like to do that kind of stuff.
I've said in the Liberty Village concept, what I envisioned and the way I planned this was to create an outlet for the food and the energy devices that they create there. Restaurant, gift shop, and we could spread these around the country as a turnkey business. And people could come in and you can put up a teepee. You can buy a teepee for about $3,000, and that could hold 4 to 6 veterans. Give them a place to sleep. And if you take it and you put the electricity and the solar and the LED lighting, it stays warm. I've got pictures of teepees up in Canada, and you don't have to pay for a shelter. You don't have to pay $200,000 over the next 30 years for a shelter.
No, I agree with you. The only trouble is that they're going to be rounding up everybody, and like you said, not only that, they'll be taking all your houses. They'll just take them. You don't have to worry about what you think is security. So right now is how do you, when you look at all the details, then you can understand why people are leaving the country. The trouble is, where can you go right now?
They don't call it the New World Order for nothing. I mean, everything that we're talking about happening here, that we're watching happening here, happened to Germany, It happened in Russia. It happened in South Africa. It happened in Rhodesia, hasn't it? I mean, this is the same thing over and over again. And all these wars are simply wars against anybody that doesn't, any country that doesn't want to go along with the one world banking system. But aren't these banksters ensconced in Canada? I mean, we call it communist red China. Aren't the banksters in charge of that too?
Oh, sure. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they bought the second biggest oil company in Canada. That's the Chinese. They've also got, as you know, if you go to Vancouver, they call it Van Cheese. That's another word. Half of it, there's 3 million people there. Half of them are Chinese. So it isn't a question of that. They're people too, and it's the same situation. We can't look at all these things of what's happening because of the meeting. Well, you know, 5 blocks north of the White House is a company called World Watch Association, or the Population Institute. You can look it up. Anyway, they're keeping track of everything on the planet, because we've reached, as you know, on Halloween, approximately 7 billion people, increasing by 250,000 a day. This is over deaths. There's not enough resources to cover the planet. So you look at their situation, and I sat in on meetings with these people, and looking at all the details, and I can understand their frustration. It's not a question of us not being able to do it, but it's the political game on the entire planet. Look at all of South Africa, everywhere. It's a total mess. Look at Australia right now. It just doesn't want any immigrants to come in, and they just stay away. Right now, you're noticing that the airfares are almost doubling everywhere because of the price of petroleum, and they want to get oil at the same prices which they are in Europe right now, $8 to $9 a gallon. And that's going to be happening here. Well, that's going to make people move back into the cities, which will make it easier for the people to round them up anyway. In other words, the cities are going to be where most of the, as we used to have a phrase, we called them useless eaters. Today we're considered human resources. So, and when you look at it, Clay, you're saying, okay, we should have these, the little places like you're talking about. I know several people who are already doing what you're saying. They may not be using teepees, but they're using yurts, the ones that I'm familiar with.
You can use yurts, you can use dirt homes, you can use Dirtbag Homes, which works as well as...
The houses that are down by, in New Mexico, they got like 3 little villages up there that are totally off the grid, made out of old tires and just glass. Whole villages. And these people are well aware of it. The trouble is we're all getting a little older, and the ones that are aware, the young people, they don't have a job. I mean, every 20 kids that are graduating from college right now, only one of them can find a job. The rest of them are what? Running on aimlessly. Because, again, the consumerism which we've been set up, what can you consume? And how many people can go out and buy a new Chevy for $30,000? It's, unfortunately, 1 out of 3 people work for the government, which is paying all the high salaries now. And where does the government get its money? Well, they can't get it anymore. They're just printing it.
The banksters have had a hold of this country and the world for several hundred years. In my book, Mystery Babylon, I've got the whole history of the Rothschilds. They've killed president after president, leader after leader, to get their agenda, and their agenda is war, man. I mean, they're making the weapons. They're making the... Who made all the money of all those A-bombs we got stored up there in Albuquerque?
Well, just Eisenhower told you, it's a military-industrial complex. That's our country. And that's what it's set up for, to go out, and take over the natural resources everywhere, and that's what they really look at. Except for countries that are backing off. You don't hear anything that's going on in Iraq right now. It's basically going towards being part of Iran. And then in Libya with Gaddafi, that whole thing, they got it out. You don't hear anything about what's happening. Everybody is rebelling against our so-called system right now, and they're all moving to some other kind of currency. The trouble is, the currency that they've been using, like the dollar, is all going away, even in South America. I mean, you can't find a country in Europe other than Switzerland that will still take the dollar. They'll take MasterCard or Visa, which I thought was interesting. but you got to have a chip in it. And that's, of course, that's what they're going to chip everybody across the United States.
George,
Just like
let me
they're doing-
stop you right there. Let me ask you this question. The 2,000 years ago in Revelations, in the Bible, they warned you not to take the mark of the beast. They told you you wouldn't be able to buy or sell